Hiya. Dave's the name, and I'd like to tell you a little story of why I'm sitting in my kitchen at 2:30 p.m. on a weekday when I would normally be at work. You see, I'd just like to justify the 4 phone calls I've made and 1 text I've sent since I've been sitting here. Let me see now, 2 hours already. 1 hour and 45 minutes of stewing and 15 minutes of action to ruin God knows how many lives. You see. Excuse me, someone is at the door. Oh, hi, sweetie. Where's Fiona? I rang Stuart and he came home early. He'll pick her up from Kinder and look after her until I get home. Linda, I've said it before, but I'll say it again. He's a great guy. I know it's traditional for a bloke to dislike his son-in-law, but you pick so darn well that I just can't help liking him. I chuckled at my daughter's grim smile. We shared a sense of humor. Have you told Pete yet, Dad? No, your brother is at sea at the moment. I'll email him later. Okay, Dad, I'm here for you, you know that. Yeah, thanks, sweetie. We lapsed into silence for a long moment. Why would she do this to you, Dad? I don't know, darling. Why didn't she say anything? I haven't actually spoken to her yet. You mean she's still? I watched as my daughter's troubled eyes flicked to the stairs leading up to the master bedroom. I just wanted to wait so she could tell us all why she did it at the same time. All? Yeah, I've invited a few more guests. They should be here shortly. What are you going to do no more and no less than I have to, so I can survive this? So you already have a plan? Yup. Doesn't it depend on her reason? Why? The facts speak for themselves. The reason is irrelevant. But she may have been blackmailed, believe me. If you saw what I saw and heard what I heard, you'd know she wasn't being blackmailed. Linda looked into my eyes for a moment. I thought you were taking this well. But I can see now, you're not, are you? No, I turned away. No daughter should see her father cry. What would you like me to do? You do what your conscience tells you to do. I won't think better or worse about you, whichever way you decide. Thanks, Dad. Do you have any idea why she would do this? I have absolutely no idea, sweetie. I thought we had a good marriage until this morning. What happened this morning? Well, your mother has always been lousy at lying and keeping secrets. It's just not in her nature. I asked her what her plans were for the day, and she said nothing unusual, just work. She was lying. Every other day she thought she would be late for work. She got kind of agitated. This morning she was as cool as a cucumber. I knew then that she had no intention of going to work. So what did you do? I called off work and parked just up the street. I was going to follow her when she left, but she didn't go anywhere. I stayed there until that guy she works with at the real estate office turned up at about 11:30. I crept in and confirmed it was what I expected, then thought what I was going to do. After that, I made a few phone calls and here we are. Were there any clues, Dad, before today? I thought you guys were good. No, sweetie, nothing. As far as I knew, I loved her and she loved me. We were going to work for a few more years, then retire and live happily ever after. Dad, I have to ask you this. Did you ever? Don't even say it, Linda. No, I have never betrayed your mother. I have never disrespected a woman that way in my life. I let my steely gaze answer for me. Just then there was another soft knock on the door. I opened it to see my father-in-law standing there. Come in, Paul. Thanks, Dave. Where is she? Upstairs in our bedroom. Okay, I have to see for myself. I understand. Go ahead, sir. Just don't disturb her, please. The old man went up the stairs and came down a minute later, but much more than a minute older. He slumped in a chair. I poured him a soda, which he gulped. I can't believe she would do that to you. She knows how devastated you were when that fiancé of yours cheated on you. She helped pick up your pieces after all. Not only that, she knows how devastated I was when I caught her mother and she ran off with that jerk, abandoning me and the kids. Sorry, I have to get out of here. I guess a woman shouldn't see her granddad cry either. I walked him to the door. Linda made like she was going to follow us, but I waved her back. I wanted the old guy to maintain what pride he had left. He stood on the porch and gripped my shoulders for support. Do what you have to do, son, but nothing physical, okay? I couldn't stand by and see that. Don't worry, Dad. I won't harm a hair on your daughter's head. But as for the other stuff, I apologize for what I am about to do to your daughter. A guy has to do what he has to do. He stared at me for a long moment, then nodded. He shuffled to his car and drove slowly away. A broken man. I rang his son, my wife's brother, and without going into detail suggested he go and see his dad to offer support. I was just hanging up when I heard the upstairs toilet flush. Ah, nap time must be over. I rejoined Linda, and we sat in silence for a few minutes. See, Linda, does that sound like blackmail to you? No, Dad. How can you stand to sit here? Why don't you go up and kick him? Well, it's not easy, sweetie, but I have this ability to turn off my emotional side. Kind of disassociate myself from all the feelings, you know? Oh, is that where I get it from? So why torture yourself? Why not go upstairs and stop it? Kick the person out. There's one more visitor to come. Right on cue, there was another knock on the door. I opened it to a reasonable-looking lady a few years younger than me. Surprisingly, she had a boy and a girl with her. They looked about mid to late teens. Mr. Brown, is it? Yes, please call me Dave. I'm Jenny Smith, and these are my kids, Robert and Sarah. I picked them up from school. If what you say is true, I wanted them here. If for no other reason than to understand that it was their father that destroyed our family. I shook hands with Robert. It was surprisingly firm. I introduced them all to Linda. You said you had proof, Dave. In answer to that, I walked over to the couch and pulled out a wallet. I handed it to Jenny. She opened it and looked at the driver's license. A tear escaped her eye. I guess she'd harbored some hope that what I'd said on the phone was wrong. Her face hardened suddenly. Well, Dave, where are they? In answer, I just held my finger to my lips in the international symbol for silence. We sat there listening to their noises. Son of a gun. You haven't confronted them yet? No, I wanted us to do it as a team, as it were. I just took some video for us, which I am happy to share with you. I also set up a voice recorder and slipped it under the bed. We can go now if you like. I suggest the children hold back until we can get the performers decent. Yes, you're right. Just hold on a moment. I have a locksmith standing by to change the locks on my house. I was just waiting to make sure you were right before giving them the go. I'm not surprised, really. This isn't the first time. He's a smooth-talking little jerk. Linda and I waited patiently while she made some important phone calls, giving the necessary approvals. We kept her children entertained by talking about random things. Then Jenny straightened her posture and said, "Okay, let's do this." I could see that this surprised them. Not the smartest move to leave your wallet downstairs, right? Tracy, just out of curiosity, why did you end our marriage this way? You had to know that catching you cheating would devastate me. Finally, I saw some shame on her face. I'm sorry, David. We couldn't help falling in love. I understand, dear. But you could have handled it differently and not have slept with him before telling me you wanted a divorce, right? Don't be crass, David. I don't want our marriage to end in fighting. Can't we just part as friends? This almost affected me. I could tell she was quoting from a script she had prepared for tomorrow's conversation. You've got to be joking. You're there with another guy, and you want us to just be friends. Not happening. We stared at each other until Tracy looked down. I decided it was time to start equalizing the pain. Your dad wanted me to tell you how disappointed he is in you. He hoped you wouldn't turn out like your mother. You actually did that? Tracy's face turned white. I did. I'm surprised you didn't see him. He was here just half an hour ago. Why? Because, dear, I wanted you to feel the pain I've been feeling since this jerk arrived. I don't know how the kids will react to this. Oh God, Dave, please don't tell the kids. Please. Sorry, dear, it's too late. Linda chose that moment to appear in the doorway. It won't work, Mom. Hiding won't make it better. When Dad called me, I wanted to believe that you wouldn't do this to him. Now I understand why he called me. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I might have urged him to forgive you. But now that I see you like this, I know it's not going to happen. Silence hung in the air, except for Tracy's sobs. Well, Mom, if you have nothing else to say, then I'll say it all. We won't need you to babysit your granddaughter this weekend. And if keeping her safe from your toxic influence means you never see her again, then you can say goodbye for good. There was a weak no from under the sheets. Linda was crying now. You should have seen the look on Granddad's face. It crushed him. She tried to run away, but I caught her and hugged her. She pulled away and ran downstairs. A few minutes later, we all heard the front door slam. It took Tracy a couple of minutes to come back downstairs, her eyes red. Why did you have to do that, David? Because, Tracy, you haven't felt even a fraction of the pain I've been feeling. You haven't felt like your heart has been torn out and stomped on. But you will, I promise you that. I'm done with pretending. Get out of my house, both of you. Tracy's defiance returned. If anyone is leaving this house, it's going to be you. I used the power of attorney you gave me, in case anything happened to you, to transfer the house into my name only. I think even Tracy was surprised by her own vehemence. She could see from my expression that she had made me even angrier by revealing another betrayal. She also realized that morally she was digging herself deeper into a hole. I quickly regained my composure. The strange thing about shocking news is that after a certain point, it stops hurting as much. I had reached that point 2 hours ago. How are you going to afford the mortgage, Tracy? Do you really think we hadn't thought of that, David? With our combined incomes, we'll manage just fine. What income is that, Tracy? Your boss, Mr. Johnson, said that both of you are fired. He would have told you himself, but your phones were off. He didn't appreciate you two cheating during work hours. You didn't tell him, Dave. Please tell me you didn't. Yup. I even sent him some revealing photos. Tracy's lover finally spoke. How did you know I was married? Driver's license, remember? Phone book, a simple phone call. Easy. Your wife's name is Jenny, right? She's pretty, with red hair, about 5'6". And your kids, Robert and Sarah, they seem like good kids. Tell me, were you planning on hurting them as much as this bitch was planning on hurting me? Please, Mr. Brown, don't tell my wife. Why shouldn't I? Haven't you emptied your bank accounts yet, preparing to run away with my wife? She was going to get the house. Just let me tell her gently, please. She doesn't deserve this. I still love her in my own way. She doesn't deserve to find out like this. What? She doesn't deserve to find out the way I did? Yes, you're right. Unfortunately, it's too late. I didn't need to turn around to know exactly when Jenny and the kids walked in. His face said it all. The expression was priceless. Yes, it's way too late, my dear husband. I'm forever grateful to Mr. Brown for bringing this to my attention. Just so you know, the evidence he's giving me should be enough to activate the prenuptial agreement we made the last time I forgave you. Tracy's head turned to look at her lover. In my state of detachment, I wondered why. Was it because he had cheated before, or was it because their financial plans had been ruined? The lock should have been changed by now. If you want to pick up your things tomorrow morning, they'll be in the dumpster I'm renting this afternoon. Throughout this tirade, John just looked down, horrified. I later learned that he had been the one to seduce Tracy in the first place, but she had come up with the idea of trying him out. His plan had been to tell his wife and family the next day as well. He looked at his wife for a moment, then glanced at his kids, but couldn't keep eye contact for long. Jenny was losing control, but managed to gather herself briefly. Well, kids, if you ever wondered what a dishonest person looks like, take a good look. Tracy cringed under their combined gaze. Jenny grabbed the kids and stormed out. I walked to the bed and glared at the cowering couple. Just get out of my house. You have no idea how angry I am right now. I'll be back in a couple of hours, and I want you both gone when I return. Don't even think about trying to cheat me, Tracy. If you do, your chances of living happily ever after, or even just living, will go from very small to non-existent. Do you understand? One look at my face convinced them of the seriousness of my intentions. I ran after Jenny and caught up with them before they drove off. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop, which we did. We supported each other through the pain and tried to explain the situation to the kids. Robert showed maturity beyond his years and helped comfort his sister. I really wished their father was here to see his daughter's pain. I gave Jenny my business card and offered to help in any way possible. I think we parted ways as friends. The following week was extremely tough. Yes, I can push my emotions aside in a crisis, but that doesn't mean the pain goes away, it just gets postponed. I kept busy with work and lawyers. They were very interested in the evidence, especially the recording I found under the bed. It had captured some conversations where the two lovers discussed their plans to take most of the marital assets. Tracy justified it as her right, considering my income. While divorces generally resulted in an equal split, my lawyer told me that judges could deviate from that if there was proof of planned deceit. Linda insisted on listening to the recordings too. We were both shocked by her mother's calculated betrayal. Linda actually called her mother to try and understand, but got no convincing explanation that it wasn't simply evil. I put on a brave face for Linda and a strong voice for my son when he called, but internally I was struggling. The weekend after the show, I got a very welcome call from Jenny. She was very happy to mow her own lawns, but had no idea how the mower worked. After some lessons on Sunday and doing some other small maintenance jobs, I was invited to stay for dinner. We were still chatting when the kids went to bed. Then things turned serious. "How are you doing, Jenny?" "About as well as could be expected, Dave." "Thanks for asking. I think I've been mentally preparing myself for this for years. Deep down, I knew it would happen again. My lawyers have discovered what he had planned for our finances and blocked it all. I couldn't believe he was going to leave us practically penniless. My lawyers are telling me that I'll get the house, child support, and financial support after the divorce, thanks to your evidence and the prenuptial agreement. Happy to be of service, Jen." Mine said something similar, but with less support. "He came around 2 days ago, begging. I think his lawyers told him the same things mine did, and the idea of being financially ruined scares him. I told him to leave. The only thing that worries me is the effect on the kids. Sarah is at an age where she can develop fine without a father, but I'm worried about Rob. I know, Jen. At his age, a boy needs a good, strong male role model. I've been thinking about that. Can I volunteer to help him out? I'd be honored to come into his life and help where I can." Jenny was silent for a long moment. I could see the conflict in her face. I know your ego must be a little fragile at the moment, Dave, so I don't quite know how." "Don't worry about it, Jen. Support for Rob is all I'm offering at the moment." I could see the relief flood her face. We discussed details for a while. "How about you, Dave? Are you okay?" "I don't know, Jen." I'm still confused. I don't know what I did to make her hate me so much. Finding her with your John just hurt me. It makes me doubt myself. Was I not good enough that? I just don't know. I feel like only half a man. Believe me, I know exactly how you feel, Dave. Jenny stared at me for another long moment, obviously debating what to say with herself. Finally, she continued, "You know what you have to do to regain your confidence, don't you, Dave?" Jenny was leaning towards me with a determined look. Yes, I do, Jen." "Good. How far are you comfortable with me going, Jen?" The determination was now in her voice as well. Hell really does have no fury like a woman scorned. As far as you think you need to go to overcome your doubts, Dave, is fine with me. You're too nice a guy to allow any lingering hurt to mess with the rest of your life. Let it all out, Dave. Okay, I'll need an alibi. You'll have one, believe me. When she told me what she had in mind for an alibi, we both laughed for a long time. Boy, I needed that. We resumed talking. This conversation was only halfway over. "What about you, Jen? Do you feel you need some closure on your relationship with Tracy?" "Good Lord, no. I know what a smooth-talking person he can be. Your poor wife didn't stand a chance. I almost feel sorry for her. We parted as friends, and she promised to talk to Rob about whether or not he was interested in helping to restore an old car I had. He was, and that set the pattern for the next 6 weeks. After school, he would come to my place, and we would work on the car together. I used every opportunity to talk to him about my ideas of values, and we became close friends. After I took him home, it was a different matter. I used all my free time to keep an eye on the happy couple. With our bank accounts frozen by the lawyers, John and Tracy couldn't get a place of their own. Tracy was staying with one of her few remaining friends. John was doing the same with one of his. They spent most evenings together before going their separate ways late at night. Finally, I had established enough of a pattern that I called Jenny one Thursday night and announced that the next night was it. She arranged for the kids to go to her parents for the night. I parked in her driveway and wheeled an old motorbike of John's out the back gate and started it a block away from her house. Once at his friend's place, I looked around, then quietly shot out the street light with my air pistol. After that, it was just a matter of waiting in the bushes at the side of his friend's driveway. He surprised me by breaking routine. He arrived by cab 40 minutes later, rather than by car. The reason became clear when I saw his unsteady steps coming down the driveway. He'd been drinking. Now getting physical has never been in my nature. My personal beliefs demanded a fair confrontation. Well, close to fair anyway. About as fair as messing with someone's partner when they didn't even know you existed. I stepped in front of him. "Hi, John." He froze. Then in the dim light, I saw recognition dawn in his eyes. He certainly didn't react the way I thought he would. Well, they don't call it courage for nothing, I suppose. Well, if it isn't the guy that couldn't keep his woman in check. Very bad move on his part. Instantly, my careful plan of a limited confrontation went out the window. The wronged beast took over. A punch to the face knocked him to his hands and knees. Then my memory got a bit hazy. From later reports, I think I kicked him a few times before stopping and walking away. Luckily, my rage lifted, allowing me to complete the last part of my plan. I lifted his unconscious form and left him in the middle of the road. Maybe the police would think he was another victim of a hit-and-run accident. Maybe not. I walked back to the motorbike and rode to a shopping center. In the shadows, I changed clothes and disposed of them, as well as my gloves, in a dumpster. Finally, I rode a block away from Jen's house and pushed the bike back. Jenny was waiting for my return and grilled me on how things had gone. She didn't seem that upset that I had gone beyond my initial plan in my anger. Upset people don't normally grin like Cheshire cats. When she had every detail, I excused myself to take a shower and get rid of any potential evidence. I checked my knuckles for bruises. All good. My eyes were closed as I was rinsing my hair when I felt a cool breeze, then warm skin. A pair of arms encircled me from behind. I thought you didn't want this. Forget about what I want. You need this. You've taken control. Now you need to take his partner. I spun around and we hugged. Boy, I needed that. We finally broke apart. Besides, when the police come to check your alibi, I want to be as convincing as possible. Now finish up and come to the bedroom. Who was I to deny the request of a lady? I held her as long and as tight as I could. If I'm any judge, she loved it as well. I woke up in the pre-dawn light as I saw her coming up to me. I'm sorry, Jen. I was tired last night. I hope you weren't too disappointed if that was you holding back. God help me if I ever see your full potential. It looks something like this. I proceeded to make her feel good. After that, we both fell asleep again. I woke up to the smell of breakfast and coffee being brought to us. Hey Dave, some idiot broke the back window of your car last night. I've already called the police. This was accompanied by a wink. Sure enough, the police came by. But I was never a serious suspect. I did see Tracy one more time, about a week after her lover's bad night. She called to say she was coming over to get the rest of her stuff. When I explained that it had all been donated to charity, she said she wanted to talk anyway. When I heard her car pull up, I observed Tracy standing next to her car on the phone. I answered the door in my dressing gown when she finally knocked. She frowned at my choice of apparel, but I made sure my face showed no emotion as I invited her in. I asked her to hand over her phone and handbag, then put them in the spare room and closed the door. She was smart enough to guess that I suspected she may try to record this conversation. With what she was wearing, she couldn't be concealing one in her clothes. We settled into chairs either side of the kitchen table. Dave, you should know that I've arranged with a friend that if I don't call within 60 minutes, she'll send the police here. I nodded at her wise precaution but remained silent. I had only one thing to say to her, and it could wait. Dave, could I just say how sorry I am with how our marriage ended? Save your breath, Tracy. I'm not the slightest bit interested in sitting here listening to you trying to appease your conscience by justifying why you tried to destroy me. The expression on her face was priceless. It was like, who was this guy? Okay, Dave, it was you that confronted John, wasn't it? Yes, that caught her completely off guard. She obviously expected me to deny it. What? What's so hard to understand, Tracy? You asked me if I confronted him? I said yes, it was me. But why? He'd never done anything to you. Come on, Tracy. Being unfaithful to your partner can't have clouded your judgment that quickly. When I saw you getting close to him, it really hurt me. It made me doubt myself and my ability to make you happy. It took away my confidence as a man. You pushed me to a point where I had to choose between becoming a bitter, lonely person or fighting back. Can't you see why I had to choose to stand up for myself? I had to protect my own dignity. Does that surprise you? I hurt your boyfriend, and if I had to, I would hurt him again to prove that I won't let anyone destroy me. You forced me to take this stand, Tracy. Only one of us can come out of this fight alive. In order to keep you and him from destroying me, I have to destroy both of you. She was shocked. I don't think she had ever thought about the consequences of her actions in that way. That's what cheating does, you know. After some time, I realized I had two options. I could end up alone and unhappy, like your dad, or I could fight back and regain my self-worth. It's not surprising that I chose the latter, is it? I had to choose the path that would allow me to remain true to myself. Yes, I hurt your boyfriend, and I would do it again if it means I can hold my head up high. You brought us to this point, Tracy. Only one of us can survive. In order to prevent you and your boyfriend from destroying me completely, I have to eliminate both of you. These words were spoken with a calm certainty that left no room for doubt. But I hoped that by cutting me off from my friends and family and getting me fired, you would be done with me. John and I fell in love, Dave. We couldn't help it. Can't you remember what it feels like to be in love? Yes, Tracy, I remember just 8 weeks ago. Like I said that day, maybe falling in love wasn't your choice, but what you did about it was your choice. If you had come to me and said, Dave, I've fallen in love with someone else, I want a divorce, I would have been sad, but I would have gladly given you your freedom or fought to win back your love, depending on what I felt at the time. But by announcing your intentions the way you did, in such a cruel and hurtful manner, you declared war on me. You betrayed everything I believe in and everything I thought you believed in. What about now, Dave? Can you leave John and me alone now that you've had your revenge? Yes, I think I can. Only because I can't think of anything else to destroy. Thank you, Dave. Don't get too relieved, Tracy. I'm not the one you should be worried about. Huh? No, I've already taken revenge on Johnny Boy. But his wife hasn't started on you yet. Trust me, she's quite a formidable lady. Just then, we heard a voice coming from upstairs. Are you coming back to bed, Dave? You promised me your undivided attention, and you're not delivering. Who is that? Jenny. Tracy ran away, with me warning her not to go to the police again. I climbed upstairs to find a fully clothed Jenny waiting for me. She held me until I stopped trembling. As for Tracy, she disappeared, and I never tried to find or contact her ever again. Like I said, my name is Dave and I feel great. Some people say that seeking revenge only leaves you feeling empty, but I can tell you it was the most effective way to cure my depression. Enough dwelling on the past. It's time to move forward. My new life is waiting for me. Jen and I never became a couple. We did help each other relieve our frustrations from time to time, but we never felt that spark needed to take it further. We remained good friends and looked out for each other. Together, we guided Rob and Sarah, and they turned out well. Whenever she had a boyfriend, I made sure to keep a respectful distance and only moved forward with her when their relationship ended. Some of those guys were a bit intimidated by me, as I made it clear that if they ever hurt her, they would have to answer to me. Before her last boyfriend proposed, he even asked for my permission. He was a great guy and I happily gave them my blessing. Their wedding was very emotional, and since her father wasn't around anymore, she asked me to walk her down the aisle. It was at the wedding that she introduced me to an old friend of hers who had flown in. With Jenny by my side and after going through self-reflection and therapy, I felt balanced enough to have a normal relationship. Now, I'm considering asking Jenny to give me away at my wedding. Why not? Without the revenge I sought against the two cheaters, I don't think I would have been able to recover and lead a normal life. It was an essential part of my healing process. Hello, my name is Tracy and my life has fallen apart in the past 2 years. I still believe that what I did back then was justifiable. However, what I did last week is going to be harder to justify. I'm sorry, let me explain. When I look back on it, my life with Dave was good, but it became dull and lifeless. The only excitement left was the birth of my first granddaughter. So when John started showing interest in me, I felt like a teenager again. He was kind and caring, and I couldn't help but fall for him. I knew what we were doing was wrong deep down, but it felt so amazing. Our relationship progressed from conversations to dates. I don't remember feeling guilty at the time. By the time we crossed that line and hugged for the first time, I already knew that I loved him and he loved me. We planned to leave our spouses and be together. A friend of mine, Carol, went through a messy divorce and told me how her ex-husband took control of everything from the beginning, making it difficult for her to even hire a lawyer. That's why John and I took control of our situation quietly. I didn't know how his wife would react, but I was sure that Dave wouldn't be happy. We had talked about what constitutes cheating before, and I knew I was already crossing that line even before John and I made our announcement. I was willing to give Dave whatever the courts demanded after the divorce. I just wanted to protect myself from any potential retaliation. I knew my husband still found me attractive. He often asked for cuddles. If only I had the same passion for Dave as I had for John, we could have avoided this mess altogether. So anyway, Carol planted doubts in my mind. What if John was inadequate? That's what led to my disastrous decision to betray my marriage even further. If I'm being honest with myself, I think I wanted to make sure John wouldn't back out on our plans by keeping his attention focused solely on me. At that time, I suspected he was somewhat weak. I know what you're thinking. Did I not consider the possibility of getting caught and how Dave would react? Did I not think about the impact on my father and children? The simple truth is that I didn't. I never expected to be caught, and if I was, I never expected Dave's extreme reaction. As for the rest, I just didn't think about it, okay? I never compared myself to my mother. I was very young when she left us, so she never really crossed my mind. I still have no idea how Dave found out about my one and only act of infidelity. But honestly, it doesn't matter to me anymore. I was devastated when I saw the hurt in his eyes when he walked into the room. I tried to justify my actions for a short time, but I couldn't. He had never done anything close to deserving that betrayal. My guilt quickly turned into remorse, but even that didn't last long. The fact that my father witnessed my transgression and the words my daughter said to me crushed me. The disappointment in John's daughter's eyes was just as painful. I never thought my husband was capable of such cruelty. When I received a call from the hospital about John's injuries, I knew it had to be Dave's doing. The doctors believed that John's injuries were a result of a hit-and-run accident. But I knew better. That's why I called the police and gave them Dave's name and car license plate number. When I called back 2 days later, they told me that Dave was no longer a person of interest. That's why I stayed by John's side during his week in the hospital. I knew he needed my protection. Before 8 weeks ago, if you had asked me if Dave was capable of such violence, I would have said no way. But for 15 minutes, in our old bedroom, I caught a glimpse of the new, monstrous side of Dave. A side that I knew I had created. A side capable of unlimited cruelty. Yes, I just knew it was Dave. That's why, right before John was discharged from the hospital, I arranged a meeting with Dave at our old house. This madness had to stop. Hadn't he taken enough revenge? John and I were both broken. He needed to move on. Walking up to my front door felt heartbreaking. Not as heartbreaking as the conversation that was about to take place. How did I go from loving a man to seeing him as my enemy in such a short period of time? Before I rang the doorbell, I called Carol and told her to call the police if she didn't hear from me within an hour. Dave answered the door in his bathrobe. Unusual. He wore no expression as he invited me in. When he asked me to hand over my phone and purse, I kicked myself for not thinking of bringing a recorder. Then I asked myself why. He was never going to admit to the attack. I stared briefly at the stranger I had known for over 27 years. I did feel remorse for how our marriage ended. By explaining how I'd fallen, I hoped to ease his pain and maybe get him to back off a little. He shut me down as soon as I began, saying he wasn't interested in the why. His tone was harsh and his facial expression blank. Who was this guy? I didn't recognize the face or the voice. I was stunned when he casually admitted to beating up John. When I heard his motivation, I could see exactly why he'd done it. Let's just say, it didn't ease my guilt any. I genuinely didn't see why Dave hated John so much. He sure set me straight on that very quickly. I suddenly realized how self-centered I'd become. It had blinded me and allowed me to justify the completely unacceptable. I suddenly knew not only why we were being punished, but judging by the expression on Dave's face, it wasn't over. My asking if he remembered what love felt like was part of my prepared speech. His answer was like a knife twisting in my gut. How else could a fundamentally decent person feel? I knew I had to run. My question about future revenge was simply to see how far. I hadn't considered that John's wife was a physical threat until Dave's words. With a sudden realization, I found myself in her shoes. What would I do if she'd done to me what I'd done to her? A chill went down my spine. When I discovered she was upstairs, I ran. I collected John from the hospital, then we both ran. The divorces were both finalized. The paperwork was delivered to our P.O. box, 2 towns away from my new home. The stress of living anonymously, with no friends and constantly looking over my shoulder, was tremendous. We had a little money eventually. The waiting was tough. The only jobs we could get were commission-only real estate jobs, and it was a long time between successes. John and I got married 6 months later. Looking back on it, we were 2 castaways thrown together, and it was a mistake. I also think one of the motivations was that by getting married, we could retrospectively justify the pain we had caused to so many, especially ourselves. His grouchiness caused me to get very distant as well. A friend of mine recommended hormone replacement therapy as it had fixed her similar condition. I hesitated at the probable cost, but she explained that as many women over 45 were on it, it was much less expensive than testosterone therapy. One doctor's visit later, and as if by a miracle, life returned to a happy normal. My doctor had warned me that one of the side effects of hormone therapy tablets was a resurgence of my libido. He said it with a smirk, like it was a good thing. When it happens to the wife of a man with erectile dysfunction, however, it is very destructive. When a guy at my new job started showing an interest in me, I couldn't help responding. He was much younger than me, and it was very flattering. Keeping our outings a secret was extremely stressful. Jealous John was much harder to fool than Dave had been. The first time we hugged was like an electric shock. Not from the thrill of it, but because of the strong déjà vu experience it elicited. I refused to go through that again. I refused to betray my partner. I thought long and hard, but finally came up with a solution. It was less than ideal, but John had to respect my needs, didn't he? So I sat John down Thursday night last week and as gently as possible told him that I wouldn't be home Friday night. I needed to spend time with someone else. I would be discreet, it was only companionship, and I would never rub his nose in it. I took his silence Thursday night and Friday morning as reluctant agreement. After having dinner and a disappointing short evening together, my new companion fell asleep. In embarrassment, I went home to our trailer. He wasn't there. The wail of sirens alerted me to the fact that the morning had revealed him hanging from a tree. I had done it again, ruined a man's life. I prepared for the consequences I knew he had arranged. I was surprised to find that it only consisted of a suicide note and a letter to his attorney. Well, the suicide note was emailed to all our acquaintances, who distanced themselves from me quicker than an airplane toilet. The letter to his attorney was to change the beneficiaries of his life insurance policy and his will from me to his children. When will I ever learn? Never mess with a person's pride.